part of the reason why I wanted to play Forspoken yesterday was because we got a DualSense Edge.
DualSense Edge, nice.
Courtesy of PlayStation South Africa.
Super shiny.
So if you're not entirely sure what this is a new controller from Sony that is like their answer to the Xbox Elite. Finally. And it is just as expensive. It is 4,500 rand or so.
which is ludicrous.
It's a lot of money. Like, this is not a controller you impulse buy because you need a new controller. This is a controller that you go, do I really need all the features that this thing offers? Because it is literally 4 times almost more expensive than a regular controller.
Yeah.
But I will say, though, that the limited time I've spent with it, I'll obviously chat about this more next week, I think. It's a nice premium feeling controller. So it's got on the back, it's got single paddles, which you can change. So I've got the like traditional paddle structure there, but you can change it to a much shorter hair trigger, and it like places it further down the controller like arm. You've got these switches here next to the triggers, independent switches, which when you flick them down, change where the trigger stops.
Okay.
So that's a very short stop, whereas all the way up is a full stop.
Okay.
That's really cool. You've got these 2 buttons on the front here, which are like function buttons. These are the ones I'm not entirely sure what they do, because like whenever I hold them, they bring up a menu that allows me to swap between controller presets because it's got onboard memory. So you can save different profiles to the controller and then flick through them on the fly.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why there's 2 to do the same thing. Maybe I can map them to do different things or whatever. I haven't figured it out.
Would it not just be 2 different profiles?
No. So right now, clicking them does nothing. You basically have to hold them down, and that brings up like a contextual menu that you can then press a face button or
to like remap
that switches between something. Like I can hold this button down and press up and down on the D-pad, and that will increase or decrease my headphone volume, for example. It's like nice, but I don't understand why there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
Yet, you know what I mean? Visually, it's got, the face buttons and the D-pad are black. The touchpad is black if you want to compare to
an old controller. Sorry, audio viewers, you're getting a raw deal here.
Yeah. It's, you can tell it's quite different. I really don't like that the black parts are now glossy as opposed to matte. I think that is silly for something that is constantly in your hands. Glossy things just suck. They pick up fingerprints like nothing else. So that's a poor decision in my view. I've got the concave sticks on. There's 2 different heights on them. So this is a normal height. You then get the longer ones that are like, I don't know, apparently some FPS players like longer thumbsticks. I think they feel weird. I'm not a fan of them. But they're fairly easy to take off and replace. Like you just pop them off and they click back on. Nice. And then obviously the whole big draw of this controller is that if your sticks do develop drift, like all controllers will because of the components they use, you can actually buy a like module that you can like remove this and replace it. That is sold separately, but it means your your controller has some longevity, I guess. What else? Yeah, I don't. I'm still playing around with it. It comes in this ridiculous case.
Of course,
that is. It's like, I don't know, can you hear that? It's plastic. It's like almost the same plastic as the PS5 console, which is, this case is heavy and it feels like a weapon. Like it feels violent. So yeah, I'm just realizing now there's a flap on the back so you can charge your controller while it's in the case, which is actually quite cool.
That is hilarious. I love that they've catered like every possible scenario here.
Literally every...
We've got a percentage of our audience that will buy this that are going to 100% travel with this and need to be able to plug it into a power bank.
100%. I mean, it's got space for all of your little components there, stuff like that. So, it's got a nice braided cable that comes with it. So it's the sort of thing that if you've owned a Xbox Elite controller, you're like, yes, this is what these are. And yeah, Sony did one of those and it's very nice. I think it's got a much nicer weight. I was telling you before the show that the arms on the new one, so the old DualSense has this like very weird sharp edge here, which when I first got the PlayStation, I found that thing annoying because it was almost sharp on my pinky. That's where my pinky rests. this Elite has a much more rounded off
finished
like arm, so that doesn't happen. Which to me, if it wasn't $4,500, I would buy the controller just for that, because it makes a big difference to the ergonomics for me and my hand size. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of software to go through. Like as soon as you link this thing up to the PS5, it's like, oh, you got a DualSense Edge. Let's take you through all the things you can do. And you can do all the things like adjusting the dead zones or the activation zones of the thumbsticks, adjusting the activation zones of the triggers. So you can say that halfway through the trigger press, it should initiate, not on a full press. You can completely remap all the buttons. So you can make triangle X if you really wanted to. And then you can map whatever you want to the paddle buttons. And then you can save 4 profiles to the controller itself so that you can flick between them on the fly. And you can even have a per game profile, so it will load the profile when the game loads, which is pretty neat, I think. Nice. So yeah, I think, this is squarely focused on people who are taking their gaming very seriously, very competitive shooters, fighting games, unless using a fight stick, or someone who just, they play their PlayStation a lot and they want the extra, they want the paddles for Apex or for what other competitive shooters are there nowadays? Call of Duty. Stuff like that. So I don't think it's for everyone, but I'm pretty sure the price is going to dictate that it's not for everyone, because I don't think everyone is going to spend $4,000 on a controller.
It's a premium, like you said, it's either for competitive gamers or people who just want that extra bit of flair because they spend a lot of time with their PlayStation. So
true. Yeah. If you have a lot of disposable income and you play a lot of PlayStation, this could be for you.
If you have money to
I do like the heft of these things. Like the Elite in this one feels so much more heavy in your hand, and that gives them already just a premium feeling because they feel solid, you know what I mean? They don't feel like the DualSense is quite heavy, but it means they don't feel like a toy, for the lack of a better word. The DualSense doesn't feel like a toy. It's $1,500 controller. It is definitely not a toy. But yeah, it definitely feels, even just putting the original one in my hand now, I'm like, oh yeah, that Elite, that Edge feels a lot better to me.
Yeah. So, look, I completely get the market this is tailoring towards, but I do still think it is a lot of money.
Oh, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And I think Sony knows that.
Yeah,
this is not a controller they sell to everyone who has a PS5. That's just not feasible.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's cool. I guess I'm going to play more around with it. I'm going to play a lot of Forspoken with it, and probably a lot more on PlayStation with it.
You should replay 2020's Game of the Year, Astro's Playroom. See how that...
Oh, I didn't hear any of that because I feel like Discord just died.
I was going to say you should play 2020's Game of the Year, Astro's Playroom. Come on.
That's actually not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea, because even playing Forspoken, I was like, oh, the vibration feels good on this thing. Like, so maybe they've tweaked some things here and there. I should give that a go. That's a good idea. Yeah.
This is why I earn big bucks.
That game's also just fucking great. So
it is. Yeah. It really is.